at least a person who is HIV positive, they know that there is no other status they can be apart from being positive. But a person who is negative can always has a 50% chance of turning into HIV positive. So, but unfortunately, HIV negative people kind of believe that they are immune to HIV for some reason. No. Nobody is immune to HIV. I went to live with a relative, and I had my own utensils. They would get disinfected after I finished eating. I had a mattress in the sitting room because I could not sleep in the bedroom with my other cousins just in case I infect them with HIV. My clothes were disinfected. So how do you expect me to tell strangers that I am living with HIV? You see, it does not make sense. This one I was coming from some interview, and this guy sees me and he just parks in the middle of the road. He's like, "Hi, where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm going to town." He's like, "Okay, I'm not going to town, but we can go to town." So I'm like, "Okay, fine, let's go to town." We now go, and he's telling me, me, I have liked you, but I am married. So this is what we are going to do. You are going to agree to be my side chick. I will pay you very good money. But on one condition, we have to test for HIV. So I tell him we don't even need to test because I'm already living with HIV. Immediately he has a meeting in the office that he has to attend to. So basically, I have never been HIV negative. I don't know how it feels to be HIV negative. Probably it is a good thing. I assume it is a good thing because there are people who are living with HIV, who are not living with HIV and not taking medication. So maybe that is a good thing. And I was born with HIV 28 years ago to what we call a disco-dent couple, whereby my mom is living with HIV, my dad is not living with HIV. So I have 3 siblings. Are they 3? They should have been 4, but one of them passed on. So he was also born with HIV like me. The others are HIV negative. And I started my ARVs in 2005, but I was diagnosed with HIV 21 years ago. Officially now when the testing was done, and now they said, now you are HIV positive, they told my parents. So when I was born way back, my parents did not know about the HIV status. I was born in a hospital. Some people would say, oh, your mom should have known her HIV status. But no, at that time, women living with HIV or pregnant mothers were not being tested for HIV. So you just go to hospital, deliver your baby, go home. So at 6 months, I developed breathing complications. So I was in ICU for 2 weeks. But up until that moment, nobody knows I have HIV. So I stay in ICU for 2 weeks. Then the doctors tell my mom, can you try and breastfeed her? Maybe today she'll feed. And then I started feeding and they took me out of ICU. So I started now after that now is when now the sickness started hitting after. And now my people, because in Kisii land, they said I have been bewitched. It is my village people. They were blamed. So when my village people were blamed very highly, when I was, I think 5 or 6, my legs used to be very cold. It will be very hot outside, but my legs are so cold. And it was like my parents were worried because now they don't understand what is wrong with me. Like they have a child who is sick, who they don't know what the sickness is. And they took me from hospital to hospital, from prayer house to prayer house. But nothing changed. So that time now when my village people are being blamed, somebody also said maybe my grandfather, because I never saw my grandfather, he was not happy when I was born. So they had to do some ceremony, invite the village, people from around the village, slaughter a goat, and I don't know, drink alcohol, you know, all those things. And then now, the weird part is though, that my legs stopped becoming cold after that. So I don't know whether it was the ceremony that happened or it was just, it's time to go away. I have never really understood. So I became better after that. And then now when I was 8 years old, I had an infection called herpes zoster. It affected the whole of my left eye and I could not see. So I was taken to Kenyatta. they tested everything. Then they finally told my parents, let's test her for HIV. And my parents are like, okay, fine, you go ahead. You know, at the back of their minds, they would never have imagined that I have HIV. Like, that was the very last thing. But they were like, okay, you could not find anything, just test. So they tested, and the test came out positive. So the first thing was, she is going to die. That is what even the doctors told them. They told them, she is going to die. Like, there were no ARVs at all. People living with HIV, all people living with HIV who were diagnosed at that time were dying, because that time it was a death sentence. You were just told, now prepare yourself, prepare your family, and tell them that you're losing this child. So my parents were like, okay, fine. But then the doctors told them, go and get tested yourselves, so that we can at least rule out maybe if it's just the two of you don't have HIV. So my dad was actually traveling out of the country. So, you know, that time it was mandatory for some countries. You had to get tested before you fly out. So for him, the test came out negative. So my mom has came out positive, and she refused to accept her status at all. Like, she was like, now I am going to die, my daughter is going to die. And you know, that time they don't know that my younger brother is also positive. So at this point, the problem is two people only. And then a year after I was diagnosed, now my brother started becoming sick. So now my mom, in fact, when I was diagnosed, my parents took me to church. I was baptized because they knew, she's leaving us, and we have to prepare ourselves psychologically. So now for my brother, they had not prepared themselves, because my brother became sick once and died, just like that. So for him, at least for me, they had, the doctors had taken them through the fact that she is not going to live. You have to start letting go as early as now. The health of my mom was okay. You see, for HIV, it has a very long incubation period. So HIV can stay in your body for up to 20 years without you experiencing any symptoms, any sickness. But the day it progresses from HIV to AIDS, then everything falls apart. So her HIV was just progressing slowly, just destroying her immune system, just slowly, without her noticing that there was anything wrong, until when she was tested. Because even when she was tested, she was just healthy. So she actually started getting sick around 2003, thereabout. That was now when her health now started now developing a lot of complications. But still, she did not go down completely to that level where people used to go down. Now, that is the thing about HIV. Its long incubation period allows it to just develop slowly. But the day as it progresses, your immune system is also being compromised. So for me, at that time, now the disadvantage of being born with HIV is your immune system is already compromised. You're born with an already compromised immune system. That is why most kids born with HIV face more health complications, because their immunity is already, the virus is already messing up with the immunity, because the child starts, their immune system has not yet developed. That is why most of them, there is zero to no hope of them making it. So at that time, that is why the doctors were very sure that I was going to die. When we were in Kenyatta, before we left Kenyatta, we had been linked to some nuns at Nyumbani Children's Home. So at that time, Nyumbani was the only children's home dealing with children living with HIV. So any child living with HIV, they will just go there and they were abandoned there. And the relatives were like, no, we can't take care of that child, because their parents have already died and all that. So they were like, no, these ones, you just stay with them until maybe the Lord takes them, or whatever happens. So the sisters suggested I go and live at the children's home. My mom told them, no, I know my daughter is going to die, but I don't want her to die in a children's home. So she was like, she's not coming to live in the children's home. So from time to time, every weekend, basically, we used to go to Nyumbani. I play with the kids. I'm given some of the things, the supplements that they're given, the food, the immune boosters, and some clothes that were donated, and then I go home. So that was my life, basically. And then now, when my brother died, we now had to relocate to the village. So now traveling every month to come to Nyumbani for checkups, because now Nyumbani was like my linkage facility. So to come to Nyumbani for checkups and them to give me Septrin, because there were no ARVs. So it's just the Septrin, they check you up, they see, okay, CD4 count is up to this level, so let us just continue feeding her well. I took a lot of herbal medication. God, I took a lot of herbal medication at that time. I used to wake up in the morning, there's like a line of medication waiting for me, just herbal. There's little to no information. There are billboards all over the country written Ukimwi unaua, with a very sad thin man who does not have hair and you can count his ribs. And then there is you with a child at home who the doctors have also told you is not going to make it, and another child was already died. You see, that was not a very hopeful situation. So that is why my mom, I had the fruits, all those, anything. The minute the hospital, there was a time my blood level went down. They told her, it's either we add her more blood or you go home and buy her things that can boost blood. I drank beetroots every day. I hate those things to date. Because every day my mom would make me wake up in the morning and drink them before going to school. It was a routine. And the minute somebody will suggest to her that I have heard of this miti shamba that is working, she will go and bring it. At some point, my tummy became so big, they started saying maybe I had a liver problem. So new medication came in. All these were just herbal, because everybody had suggestions. And you know the thing with when you have a sick person, even a sick person at home, people always give you suggestions. But because of that desperateness, you want this to work. So you have to give them. You don't care whether it works or not. You just have to give them that medication so that they can, they can just take it, and at least it makes you feel that, yeah, something is happening. So coming to Nyumbani became a little bit hard. All that travel, going back, it became very, very difficult. So we asked for a transfer. By that time, Kisumu had opened, the new Nyanza CCC had opened. So we started going there. The problem with New Nyanza was that clinic would close at exactly noon. In fact, it was 11:59 because you will not be served past 11. At noon, they've closed, everybody has gone home. So one time we reached there at 12:05, that lady refused to serve us. Imagine those are not ARVs, that is just Septrin that we have gone to pick. And she said, no, go and come back tomorrow. We have traveled from Kisii to Kisumu and you're telling us to go and come back tomorrow. Today already there was an issue with the matatus on the road. So how are we coming back tomorrow? So we had to find now a place to stay. That is now an extra cost that you had not projected in the morning. And the following morning we went, took the Septrin and continued with life. So that I think was the first time. At that time I was in class 7. That was the first time I had the doctor ask my mom, when did you know she's living with HIV? And my mom said, she was born with it, but we just knew recently. Nobody had told me all this while that I had HIV. Not even one person had told me that. So my parents keep telling me I have skin cancer and I will get better once I turn 13. So that is what they told me. And they told me, you're going to be okay. Because that time my skin had too many issues. So they said, once you reach 13, you are going to be okay. And the skin cancer will clear. So I knew I had skin cancer and I knew I was going to be better. And then at school, we had already been taught, of course, about HIV. And definitely it was not in a friendly way. The teacher was like, do not get married because people who get married get HIV and they die. Anybody who has HIV dies. So definitely I did not. I remember once I went home and told my neighbor, I am never getting married because if I get married, I will get HIV and I will die. And I don't want to get HIV. And then that time I am saying that I already have HIV, So when I had that question from the doctor, I was like, no, but I would have already died. So it definitely cannot be HIV. I would have died. Because the teacher was very, and then the education system already messed up the whole HIV information. So people knew that if you have HIV, you're dead. So I told myself, cannot be HIV. Asai, I would have been dead long ago. So maybe I just had my own things. And that was, it ended there. So the following year now, my mom became sick. She went so down. She was in ICU. And people knew she was not going to make it because she was bad. You know, the HIV faces during that time, the thinness, the no hair, all that. She had all that. She even had TB. So getting out of that bed and becoming healthy was a miracle. One of the miracles that actually happened at that time. So she woke up, she came back home. At that time, I got another herpes zoster attack. The same eye, herpes zoster came again. So she took me now to hospital, now a new hospital, now Kericho level 5. Now we have transferred from Kisumu, now we are going to Kericho. And at Kericho now I get tested. Now this time, you know, I was used to going to hospital. So going to hospital was never a big deal for me. I used to actually enjoy going to hospital because my mom would buy me chipo, kuku, soda when we are done. So it was a good thing. And I would travel and I would miss going to school. It was a win-win situation for me, by the way. So that day we spent like the whole day in hospital. Normally it was just a few hours, we're gone. And then we go to the doctor's room and she's like, "Hi, Doreen, do you know why you're here?" I'm like, "Yeah, to get treated like always." And she's like, "No, today I want to tell you something." So I was like, "Okay, go ahead." She tells me, "You know, you were born with HIV. You got it from your mom, but you should not blame her because you have HIV. You are now going to start a new set of medication called ARVs, and you will take them for the rest of your life." At that time, the rest of my life did not sound like 16 years later. It sounded like maybe 1 year or 2, and we are done with this thing. So I took my ARVs. In fact, I was very excited when I started them because I never used to like the Septrin medication. It actually did not hit me in a negative way. Until the following year, I was supposed to go to Form 1. Now, both schools that had called me were boarding schools, obviously. So my mom refused to let me go to a boarding school. She was like, if you go to a boarding school, the nutrition factor, because we had even been, that time, I think that time HIV information and even how you were disclosed to was very, very different as compared to now. At that time, it was a little bit more comprehensive. We went into a nutrition clinic and we were given all the nutrition facts, what you're supposed to eat, what not to eat, we were even given a timetable of what time to eat. So to me, that was, you know, very, very informative. And then now when my mom told me, you know, in boarding school, definitely there is no balanced diet. So you can't go to a boarding school. So you're going to go to a day school. I was like, okay, fine. Now in Form 2, the school turned into a full boarding school. So I had to move from that school to another school. And when I moved, then the post-election violence happened. And we used to live in a border town between the Kales and the Kisis, so definitely we had to relocate. So we relocated to Ukambani. Now in Ukambani, the day schools are so far away, like they're kilometers away. The only possible schools and the schools that were very near to home were boarding schools. So one of the things that I was told when I was disclosed to was never tell anyone you're living with HIV. That was what the doctor made very clear. Do not tell anybody you are living with HIV, because that time stigma was so high. So they told me they won't take you normally. They won't treat you like a normal person. So don't tell anybody. So I was like, okay, fine. That is something I can live with. So now when it comes to sexuality or sexual education, in school it was definitely offered. We used to have all those speakers come from time to time and talk to us. But you know, when they talk, they don't talk like somebody in our midst has HIV. They talk like it is for people out there and ensure you do not get it. You see, so most of those speakers always left that behind, that probably they're kids who were born with HIV. Probably they are right inside this room. Because with HIV, you are either infected or affected. But no, for them, it was like, that is a disease for people out there, and you ensure that you do not get it. So it was like always like that. But at home, Now, post-high school life now was a very realistic type of life. The first challenge came with choosing a career, because then at first I wanted to be a radio presenter. And I went to a relative of mine, I talked to him and told him, this is what I want to be. And he told me, no, you cannot choose this as a career. I was like, why? He was like, because people will know you. And when people know you, they will talk about you and they will talk about your status and you will not like it. I see what people experience. And imagine that time, social media was not this huge. So I was like, yeah, he kind of has a point. So let us drop that, you know, let us drop that. I don't want anybody knowing I'm living with HIV. So I chose the second career. I wanted to be an air hostess. So that is, I think that time I was stigmatized without the lady knowing she's stigmatizing me. So I reached there, I give her my papers, she looks at them, she's like, okay, yeah, everything looks good. But now you have a scar on your face. We can't really accept you with the scar on your face, because before you even start classes, you will go through an interview that ensures you have no visible scars. Now it is like the universe was communicating to me, because like 2 days later, I see the Babu Aloliondo story on TV, and the media is highlighting it, and the cars are lined going to Babu Aloliondo's place in Tanzania. Babu Aloliondo was a self-proclaimed healer. He would heal everything. And as it was, the media was actually bringing him out that he's healing everything. And he was interviewed and he said he has a magic herb that heals everything. So I convinced my mom. I told her, we have to go. We are about to become HIV-free. This thing and us and medication, we are about to divorce our medications like that. So I convinced my mom. We traveled all the way to Tanzania. We lined like everybody else because there was a long queue, a very long one. Just people are sick, by the way. Because you know the sad part is Babu sold hope to these people, and he said he could heal everything. That village, because the Loliondo is a very small village in the middle of nowhere, and the village was actually constructed, there was a road that led there. There was an airstrip because people were landing. Why? Because everybody wanted to get healed. Babu could heal everything. So later on, we go, we take the cup. The cup just costed 100 shillings, 100 Kenyan shillings, and he will insist he wants only in Kenyan currency. So we gave him the 100 shillings. We drank our cup. Just some herb. It was nothing. It was just a herb in a cup. And they had these people who would serve the cups across all the cars that were lined up. And we drank the cup and came back to Kenya. And he said he does not have a cure, but the cure is in our faith. And we had faith. For that, the distance we had traveled, our faith was at 150%. So we came back to Kenya. We stopped taking medication, obviously. So my mom stopped for 3 months. But she went and got tested and it came out positive. So she told me, I'm going back to my medication. I told her, let me wait and see. You never know, maybe the medication is taking time to settle in and such kind of things. So 1 year passed. In the HIV, when you're being, during checkups, after every 6 months, we do tests called CD4 count and viral load test. So my viral load went very high. It was at, the first time it was at 50,000 copies. The doctors started, you know you are in trouble when doctors start calling each other. And they're like, no, Ebuka, have a look at this. Probably this was an error in the lab. But the lab technician is called and told, remember the test you took on this and this date? And then I'm like, okay, what is happening? So the doctor tells me, your viral load copies are very high. They're like high, like a person who is not taking medication at all. And I was like, no, I have been taking my medication every day. I do not even know what you people are talking about. So the doctor tells me, something is wrong. What time are you taking your medication? We figured out, I told them maybe it is the time. Sometimes I forget to take at 8, I take at 9. So the doctor told me, ensure that your medication is taken at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Don't miss. So I told him, okay, fine. I knew after that, so he told me because of the medication, in medication we have first line, second line and third line. But at that time we only had first and second line. So he told me if this medication continues like this, we're going to take you to second line because maybe you are having what you call drug failure and we don't want you to fail on medication. So I knew if they take me to second line and I am not going to take my medication, then definitely it's going to be to my disadvantage because there is no third line and that will limit my options. So I stopped going to hospital. So I stopped going to hospital, I stopped taking my medication, I was just at home, just relaxing. Nothing was wrong, my health was okay. My health was okay, but I was not feeling unwell or sickly, nothing. Everything was fine. I would wake up, do my activities the whole day like everybody else and life will move on. So towards the end of the second year in 2013, one day I went to sleep very well, but during the night I started having a fever, very high fever. So my mouth became very swollen. It started now having some wounds, sort of rashes, and I was heating up. But now I am feeling cold. So I'm telling my mom I need more blankets. But for her, when she's touching me, I am basically burning up. So she's like, no, we have to take you to hospital. At first she wanted to take me to a private hospital, but then she said, no, let me take you to a public hospital. So we went to Machakos level 5 in the morning. So reaching Machakos level 5, I am tested again. My viral load is taken because she gave them my medical history. My viral load is taken. I'm taken for x-rays because at that point they are thinking it might be TB and they find out it's pneumonia. And my viral load now is at 120,000 copies. Now it has gone beyond. So that doctor was a very rude doctor, by the way. He looked at me and he told me, why are you not taking your medication? And me, I'm like, because I got tired. That is the first answer that was in my head. But I just looked at him like, you know, if you're going to give me something, just give me something. Because at that point, my body was in so much pain. So I just wanted to have this over and done with. So he goes ahead, gives me one full lecture about medication and all that. And I'm like, I just want this pain to go away. That is the reason why I am here. So he gave me a lot of antibiotics and now told me you have to start your medication again. So I started my medication again. I continued in my medication, the ARVs, and then once I became well, I stopped all of them. And my mom was like, why did you stop? I told you, know, the thing is, when the doctor tells you you're going to take this medication for the rest of your life, they don't really tell you that the rest of your life during this time, you're going to get tired. You're going to look at that medication and you don't have the strength to take it. It's not that you don't want to be healthy. It's just that it's so difficult to take. So I looked at my, I stopped taking my medication again, but this time around I did not get sick. I now used to take sometimes I skip, sometimes, you know, it was like I was just doing my own drug holiday. By now I was in college, I did community development. So when I was doing my attachment was at a wellness center and it used to center on issues of drugs and HIV and AIDS and alcoholism. So we went to this school and we were testing people. And the students were like, first of all, when they realized there is a VCT going on, like free VCT services, everybody disappeared. We would not get anybody passing through the path where we had our tent. So like, okay, what is happening? So the first day we did not get data. We got like 2 or 3 people. So the second day, the supervisor came, told us, how about you go to their classes, talk to them and let them know the importance of knowing their status and all that. So I went. I was talking to them and everybody is telling me, I have not done anything wrong. I am okay. You ask them, when was the last time you got tested? I have never really gotten tested, but I know I am very much HIV negative. Me don't have HIV. Do I even look like I have HIV? Me? They did not want to get tested, and some of them had this mentality of, if you keep going to VCT, whatever you are going to look for there, you will one day find it there. The sad part is HIV is not found in VCTs. VCT just confirms what you already have. And now when we came back to the office, my boss called me, now you're presenting, how was the field? What did you experience? So I told them, people out there do not want to know the HIV status. So she told me, how about you try a different approach? Tell them you're living with HIV first, and then they will get to know. I looked at my boss like, hey? Me, I tell them I am living with HIV so that they can come and get tested. Very tricky, very tricky. But now, you can't tell your boss that. I told her, yeah, that is a nice strategy. We can try that. But I know at the back of my mind, I am not going to do anything of that sort. There is no way I am telling people I am living with HIV. How? So she told me, by the way, I would like for you to write your story down, give it to me, and then we can see what we can do with it, because this is something that you can use as an advocacy tool. So at that time, I'm just looking at my boss like, hey, you want me to tell people who are not even my family that I am living with HIV. Now, you see what happened when I was first diagnosed. My parents told my family members that I was living with HIV. And most of the family members, I remember when my brother died, I went to live with a relative. And I had my own utensils. They would get disinfected after I finished eating. I had a mattress in the sitting room because I could not sleep in the bedroom with my other cousins just in case I infect them with HIV. My clothes were disinfected. So how do you expect me to tell strangers that I am living with HIV? You see, it does not make sense because your family are the first people who are supposed to love you, welcome you, look at you beyond your HIV status. But then they're the people who are sending you to the shop. I remember one time we were sent to the shop and I was told, you go and say we want bread. The child was the one carrying the money and was the one who would carry the bread back home. So my work was just, shopkeeper, tunataka mkate. And then the child is given the bread and she gives the money, she's given the change, we go back home. My work was just to talk. So I was like, I did not agree with my boss at all. Later on, I saw an article on the Daily Nation. I don't know what it was about, but it was about some empowerment program in Kibera. So I wrote to the editor. I took that email, typed a very long email, sent it to the editor. At the back of my mind, I knew the editor would not read it. And if they read it, they would not reply. Then I reach home and I get a response. Hi, Doreen, I just read your story. It's so encouraging. I want us to do a story. I'm like, what? So we set up a date. I went to the studio. We recorded, talked. And then she told me it's not going to go to print media. It's going to be online. I said online people won't even read it. This is easy. Now what they did is they shared it on their Facebook page. And now Facebook at that time had started becoming a little bit huge. So when they shared it, I was like, people were tagging me and they're saying, we know this lady, she's not living with HIV. You should be sued. People are now saying, come and see people. Watu wanakuharibia jina huku. Daily Nation, how can you be such a media house? Everybody was condemning them. So because at that point, I think, after Assunta Wagura, I don't think if there is anybody who else had come out and said, I am living with HIV. Because HIV was still considered this bad monster that nobody wants to say they have. So everybody was tagging me. So I panicked. I deactivated my Facebook account. And then people were sending me emails because at the end of the story, I had left my email. So people were sending emails, like very many emails. I was overwhelmed. And everybody has an issue. Everybody has a story. Everybody is living with HIV and they have never told anyone. I'm like, I have just shared my story for the first time. I don't know how to handle your cases. It's too much. So I got like 1,000 emails that day and I never even responded to all of them. I don't even think I responded to a quarter of them because there were too many. But one story stood out for me, and in fact, probably the story that made me realize that I need to talk about my story more. It was the story, this man was married and they had lived with the wife for, 5 or 10 years. And he used to take his medication from his boot. So he would come home, park at the driveway, open his boot, remove his medication, drink it, go to the house like there is nothing wrong that is going on in his life. So nobody apart from him and his doctor knew that he had HIV. So I was like, I actually asked myself about his wife, his children. You know, he's not just him. What if he infects her? How will this woman react? What if they give birth to a child, the child becomes HIV positive, and this is something that can actually be prevented? So I actually felt that now you need to come out and speak and put a face behind HIV, because all we have are statistics, a lot of statistics. We have 38 million people living with HIV in the world. You don't know anyone. Yes, they say these people are your friends and your relatives, but your friends and your relatives are the ones taking the medication from the boot of their cars. Some of them are even hiding the medication in very weird places so that nobody will ever find out that they have HIV. So now that is actually what turned my whole story around, and now I even started sharing it on my social media, because before that I had not shared it on social media at all. So I started from the higher part, which is mainstream media, and now moved to social media and started sharing it, and now what I wanted was to give a face to HIV, because one of the things I realized we lacked at that time was there was no face. So it became, now that is how now I started talking about it, and people were saying, no, but you know, your HIV is different. You know, you did not choose to get it. I'm like, nobody chooses to get HIV. There is nobody who just walks around and says, you know what, I want to get HIV. No, everybody gets it from different circumstances, whether it's sexually transmitted, whether you got it from a parent, whether you got it through blood transfusion. Like, nobody just, it's not like a commodity you buy in the supermarket, you go and say, hey, can I have HIV there? No, it is something that nobody ever expects it. And it comes. And the H in HIV stands for human, which means it is a human being disease. So the more I shared about it, some people even said the government is paying me to share that story. I think that is one of the weirdest assumptions I've ever gotten. People telling me, so how much is the government paying you to say that you have HIV? You know, you don't even look like you have HIV. Then the issue of the look came out. Why? Because we're still stuck at those billboards of Ukimwi Unaua and the very sad person who is about to die. That is where we are. So we don't know that people are now taking ARVs. Their lives are being restored. They look so nice. They're, you know, we have ministers, MPs, doctors, nurses, teachers who are living with HIV, and they're just living their lives. They're taking the ARVs. But no, we still want to see a person who is thin and about to die, and then we will believe that they have HIV actually. I will post on social media and say, I'm living with HIV. The question after that will be like, how did you get it? I say I was born with it, and they're like, oh my God, I am so sorry. And then they ask, how many people have you given it to? Because you cannot, yes, you were born with it, we excuse you, but how many people have you given it to? Because that is how people expect HIV to be. That is how the information we were given at first was. But now HIV has been in Kenya for 36 years. And in the 36 years, a lot of things have happened. But for some reason, we are still stuck in 1980 something. And we still don't understand that HIV has changed. There are now ARVs that are giving people quality of life. But we still are stuck at that age where we believe HIV is still a death sentence. And it is not. In 2021, HIV is not a death sentence. Now, one of the things that I think probably our government never addressed over the 36 years was the stigma related to HIV. Everybody looked at HIV as a death sentence and left it at that. The government thought, we are giving these people free ARVs, what more do they need? We are giving them free testing, what more do they need? But no, they needed the information. So they left the information gap. And that gap has stretched over the years. And now we have young people who are supposed to be informed about the issue, who are not also informed. No, in fact, you find that this is a very learned person, but when the information they have about HIV, when they talk to you about it, you're like, wow, we really need a lot of information out there. Like, we need to see different faces of HIV. We need to see people in their daily lives, spending normal lives, living with HIV. We need to see more information on HIV prevention. Because you see people telling you probably the only prevention method that is widely known is condoms. The minute you mention PrEP and PEP, people are like, okay, what are those? How are those used? Some people even think it is one and the same thing, you know? And then you tell them, no, PrEP is medication used before HIV exposure. You take it after this long and you take it for this long, and they're like, okay, so we have medication that does, and what does PEP do? You tell them PEP is taken after an exposure for 28 days. They still are like, no, do they work? Okay, how efficient are they? Percentage, you tell them 96%. Oh, so there is a 4% chance that I will still get infected. The information, the gaps are still there. And imagine, this is a time where we have the internet that has a lot of information. I think this started in 2015 or 16 thereabout, where now scientists discovered that a person who is on ARVs very well and they are virally suppressed, which they have a viral suppression of 0 or below 1,000 copies, they cannot transmit HIV to another person. If it is a woman, they cannot transmit HIV to their child. They can be able to give birth to a HIV negative child. But no, Kenyans will still tell you, HIV, me, I do not trust that information. You will think you went and just sat down and decided to tell people that information. But no, this is information that has been verified and certified by CDC, by WHO, by FDA. But no, Kenyans refuse to accept that if somebody takes the ARVs very well, they cannot transmit it to another person. And you find that there is still an issue with disclosure. The secrecy around HIV is still there. Everybody is like, no, the only person who knows I'm living with HIV is me and my doctor. And you see, living with a health condition that requires a lifelong commitment requires a support system. You cannot live with HIV or any other health condition and there is no support system. You need the support system. Way back, we used to have support groups in hospitals. Nowadays, with the funding going down and all that kind of thing, there is nothing like a support group. And a lot of people are dying because of self-stigma. Somebody looks at themselves and like, what will people say? The sad part is people will always say something. They will, when you die because of HIV, they will say, see, angeendea madawa. They could have gone and taken the medication. When you are living with HIV, they start saying, tunashuku nani akona HIV. You know, growing up in the village, we had those people who were termed they're living with HIV, but there is no evidence. There is no evidence, but there is rumors. The whole village knows this person has HIV, but nobody has seen them sick. Nobody has seen them taking medication, but everybody knows they have HIV. So we are getting to that point. And the secrecy has actually brought the issue of disclosure. Disclosure is becoming very hard. Especially nowadays where everybody has like more than one sexual partner. So they decide, no, if I die, I die. We all die together. But then that we all die together mentality is now increasing new HIV infections. Sometimes I feel it's a good and a bad thing. My disclosure, I do feel it's a good and a bad thing because it is a good thing because now I'm able to live with HIV the way I want, and unapologetically, I do not care. I have it, it is not going to change, so there is nothing wrong with it. And it has also ensured that I have fully accepted my HIV status. But then, it has brought, in a bad way, people who think they want to give you pity because they think that is what you want. So people will come, in fact, it has, I think, probably affected my dating life more by disclosing, because this person already knows you have HIV. So it is not that you do not have the element of surprise of sitting in a first date and wondering, how do I say this? I will be left with this bill and I will have to chonga viazi. No, you don't have that element of surprise. It used to be there before I came out publicly. But now after I came out publicly, people take it as a bait. Like, I love you despite your HIV status. You know, you cannot love someone and put despite. you have already negated the whole love, you know. And people think, no, the problem she has specifically is HIV, so I have to highlight it. Me, I am HIV negative, but I still want to date you. It is not a favor. Me, I am positive like you. I want us to date. You might be positive like me, but we might not be compatible. You know, being positive like me, that is the only thing you have just discovered. It is just the only thing you have just highlighted. So you see, it brings about that kind of perception. And people who come and say, me, I don't even mind your status. Like, you know, they ask you, why are you single? You tell them, I just chose to be single. No. Is it because of HIV? You're like, no, it is not because of HIV. It is not. But you see, you can't tell people. Sometimes I find it so hard to keep on explaining myself over and over again, so I get very tired. And now some people look at it that people have accused me, especially on social media, that I've glamorized HIV. That I've made it look like this very beautiful thing, and they all want to now, someone tells me, I want to trend like you. Such kind of statements. I want to get a job in the HIV. Somebody actually recently told me they want to quit the job in IT and get into the HIV world. And I asked them, why are you quitting your job? Where are you going? I want to go to the HIV world. To do what in the HIV world? Because the thing with HIV is it's cross-cutting. It's not like that because you have HIV, you now have to be in this specific box, you know, and work specifically with people living with HIV. No, you can be a doctor and you're living with HIV. You can be a lawyer and you're living with HIV. It does not mean that now you quit law and you go and become, I don't know what you go and become, because living with HIV is not a career per se, so I don't know what they're going to become. There are lots of weird moments, but I think two of them have stood out. One was before I came out publicly, and I told this guy who wanted to date me. So when I told him, I was looking for pity, because that was the goal. He feels, well, yay, and then he's like, oh God, I can't leave her. So you see, that there was that. So I told him, you know, I'm living with HIV. He told me, no, you're saying that so that you can say no to me. And I told him, no. I am actually living with HIV. So I said, let's go and get tested. I knew definitely, in fact, that time I was not even taking medication. So I knew definitely my test will not even give me a false negative. So I went, we tested. We told the doctor, you stop the story of counseling. We want just the test. So we got tested. Mine came positive, his came negative. We were in Ngong. From Ngong, I was left in Halinga. Kwanza, you know the way we were now talking too many stories, those stories disappeared. Now it was just the radio. If it was not for that radio, I don't know what will have happened. So we came like just silence all the way. We reached Halingam. Is like, you know, I've remembered I have something I have to do in the office. So let me just leave you here. See, we shall talk. We have never talked. We have never talked to date. So yeah, there was that. There is another one now. This one I was coming from some interview, and this guy sees me and he just parks in the middle of the road. And he's like, hi, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to town. He's like, okay, I'm not going to town, but we can go to town. So I'm like, okay, fine, let's go to town. So I get into the car and then I start asking myself, now what if I get kidnapped in this car? But that came later. So we now go and he's telling me, you know, me, I have liked you, but I am married. So this is what we are going to do. You are going to agree to be my side chick. I will pay you very good money. But on one condition, we have to test for HIV. So I tell him we don't even need to test because I'm already living with HIV. Immediately he has a meeting in the office that he has to attend to. At least we had already reached town. So he dropped me up for International House and he's like, no, I will give you a call. I still don't believe that information you just told me because I know people living with HIV don't just say it, but we shall talk. He called me like 2 weeks later and he's like, I don't believe that information. I want us to test for real. I see the test and then I can actually now confirm. I'm like, what do you want to confirm? I am the one who told you I'm living the HIV. You know, it's not like you stumbled upon my medication or something. No, I told you. So I think another one, this I can classify it as weird. I had gone to test for my viral load in Mbagathi. So standing at the gate waiting for someone, then this someone comes and said, Madam, unaitwa kwa ile gari. So I go to check who is calling me. I'm like, hi. So just seeing you standing there, what's going on? I tell him I have to test for something in here. So, you know, I'm not saying what I'm testing for. Just say I'm doing a test in here and yeah. He's like, okay, fine. So we can meet for coffee later. I'm like, later, yes, maybe, but we shall see. So I give him my number. He saves my number. And then on WhatsApp, I had put a profile picture where I'm wearing this t-shirt written HIV positive since 1992. And then he sees it. So the guy stops calling. I'm like, it's Thursday, I remember. Oh, we had a date today. My date has blocked me. What is happening? So my WhatsApp DP made me miss out on free coffee. But, you know, when I saw the Loliondo story on TV, and it looked real, and it was on mainstream media. You know, social media, you can question things. You can say, no, these are people doing it for clicks, you know. But this is a person who is being highlighted by not one or two media houses. And politicians are jetting in, and the queues are long. So definitely it looked real. But then it was just a person who was trying to sell hope. And unfortunately, it was false hope. And we bought the hope, but then we realized it was fake. And there is nothing as bad as coming to terms with the fact that 1 minute you thought you were going to be HIV free, and the next minute you realize that you are never probably going to be HIV free. It is a very sad realization, a very sad one, by the way, because it takes you from a point where you're so hopeful in life to a point where you go so down, because then you even kind of resent that person, because why are they selling me something that is not there, does not exist? Because I remember before my late brother died, my mom took us to some televangelist. He was a very powerful man. And he used to say he would heal anybody and everything. And he would, you know, those miracles they used to do on TV. So we went there with my brother to my mom's back and me on the hand. So we're going. We after the preaching, so my mom tried to access the man. The security people were like, no. You have to get an appointment. So I think 2 weeks later, my brother died. My mom really resented that man a lot, because she was like, if he had prayed for my son, he wouldn't be dead. You see, for her, you know, apart from the 3 months that she did not take her medication, she has never stopped. She's always taking her medication. She gets her side effects, she goes to hospital, complains, she's changed, but she has never been that person who says, I'm not going to take this medication, I'm giving up on this life, I don't like, you know, for her, I think the moment she reached a very low stage when she was very sick, I think for her, she takes this as a second chance in life. And so she's just fully accepted herself. So even if you stigmatize her, discriminate, because some of her colleagues actually discriminated her when they found out I was her daughter. They were like, they used to, you know, the way people throw words around, you know, like, some of you people, you used to prostitute around, and now, you know, like such kind of things. And you know very well that this is a jab aimed at me. But she's like, you know, one of the things about HIV is, as long as you're a human being and you know, at least a person who is HIV positive, they know that there is no other status they can be apart from being positive. But a person who is negative can always has a 50% chance of turning into HIV positive. So, but unfortunately, HIV negative people kind of believe that they are immune to HIV for some reason. No. Nobody is immune to HIV. So don't subscribe to things. That is why people sell me cures every day, all day. Every day I have to get somebody selling me some cure from I don't know where, some medication that works from I don't know how, but I always tell them I have been down this route not once or twice. I have subscribed to almost every one of these things. I wanted to be HIV free very desperately. But then I realized that I think I am just trying, I am in denial, and it's time I accept myself and take my ARVs. That is what is the most important part of this. And so the minute I accepted that and I came in terms with that reality, there is no scam that you can throw to me that this one you take, you will become HIV free. Even if you sell me, I won't. I will never subscribe to it, because I know that that will be just me going back very many steps after I have reached a point of being undetectable. I am living my life normally, and then now you want me to stop taking the medication that is making me undetectable, start taking some medication I do not understand, and then, you know, the thing is, a lot of people think that acceptance is an event. It's not an event. It's our process. And the thing with processes is they take time. So you have to give yourself time. You have just gotten diagnosed. You don't accept tomorrow because it is impractical. This is a new message. You're about to start new medication. You're about to experience a different kind of life. You're about to get people who are very ignorant giving HIV jokes left, right, and center, and they will make you feel very uncomfortable. So until you can't just say, today I have woken up, I have accepted myself. No, it doesn't work like that. Also, acceptance does not need to be public, because I get people telling me, you know me, I can't come out and speak to people like you. No, it is not about coming out and speaking to people like me. It is about yourself being comfortable with you. Because before I came out, I was comfortable with me. Why? I knew that social media or mainstream media is a very mean place. People will talk. People will stigmatize me even the more. But until I am okay with my status, then I will always have an issue with them. So until you are okay with your status, it is a process. It is just like healing. It is a process. You take time. If you get burnt today, you won't get healed tomorrow. It will take time before the burn subsides and then your skin goes back to normal. The same thing with acceptance. You got diagnosed today. Give yourself time. Take that time, because a lot of people want to accept. They want to figure it out immediately. If they come and tell me, you know, I just got diagnosed, so tell me what do I do? There is nothing that you can do. You know, it's take your medication. Take it one day at a time. It's like there is no user manual to living with HIV. It is just life. You experience it every day. Today, everything is good. Tomorrow, somebody says something about people living with HIV. You feel triggered. You can't say anything about it, but you have to be okay with it. You have to laugh and say, yeah, no, that is not how people living with HIV operate. But, you know, and you don't feel that it's personal. You don't always feel like you're being attacked. Until you reach that point where you don't always feel like you're attacked, then you have not yet reached acceptance. Acceptance is just that living beyond your diagnosis. Just looking at it and they're like, you know, if somebody went with me for a date and they left me there with a bill, I'm paying it because they're the ones who do not understand what is HIV. Me, I am okay with my status and life moves on. But don't give yourself pressure to accept yourself. Don't look at other people who have accepted themselves fully. You look at Doreen, you want to be Doreen. You want to accept your status like Doreen. It took Doreen 23 years to accept her status. So there is no way you're just going to get diagnosed today and accept tomorrow. You get diagnosed, you go through the steps. You deny, you become bitter, you blame someone for infecting you, and then you finally reach that point where you realize there is nothing wrong with me living with HIV. There are people with worse health conditions than I am, and life moves on. All these mean comments will always be there. And sometimes even there's a time I passed through town and somebody said, Williams HIV, you see? Yeah, it happens. So you have to, that is why I'm telling you, until you reach acceptance, everything will always trigger you. So you have to ensure that you have reached that point where you're like, okay, if that is how they have decided to brand me and label me, fine, you know? But at the end of the day, I know that beyond my HIV diagnosis, I am just a normal human being living a normal life. So I created an initiative called I'm a Beautiful Story. I'm a Beautiful Story is basically meant to give hope to people living with HIV, that there is nothing wrong with you living with HIV, and there is a life beyond your HIV positive diagnosis. And also to educate and inform these people who are not living with HIV that HIV is here, it is a human being disease, and there is nothing wrong with the people living with it, and this is how you prevent yourselves, this is the information that there is currently, and this is how we are so far. So far I do a lot of social media advocacy on both my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I do YouTube videos on different HIV topics because we need that education. We need that information out here. We need people to know that this is what is happening in the HIV field, and HIV is progressing, you know, prevention is becoming better, medication is becoming better, so that they don't see somebody taking medication and then they're like, so how do I handle this? Why do we have discordant couples? How can we live, you know? And people rejecting another person because they said they're living with HIV. So that information is what I want to put out there. And for other people living with HIV like me to see that, hey, we are not just a statistic. At least if I don't know the 38 million people worldwide living with HIV, I know myself and I know Doreen. So at least there's the two of us. So every morning I wake up, I just disturb people with HIV messages, but at least I'm trying to create that awareness that let us not leave this conversation behind. Especially during this Corona time, people were like, no, now talk about Corona. HIV is a thing of the past. But the sad part is the gains that we have made in HIV in the last 36 years were actually threatened by Corona. They were threatened very badly, and people missed the medication, people defaulted from taking the medication. The stay home, stay safe was not a very safe space for people living with HIV, especially if they have never told their partners that they're living with HIV. A lot of people were coming to me and telling me, I just found medication in my wife's bag, and she is telling me this is PrEP. So tell me, how can she be given PrEP for 90 days? And now you know that if you answer that question, you will have disclosed the wife's status without knowing, and it's just going to open a whole Pandora box because you are not with that person, you don't know what they're capable of doing. There were issues of gender-based violence cases, new infections coming up, but people just say, no, forget HIV, now we want to speak about Corona. People living with HIV themselves are worried because they are being told Corona is affecting people who have a compromised immune systems more. So they're like, Doreen, are we going to die? So what happens if we get Corona, you know? And you yourself, you don't even have that information. But they expect you to have it because they expect you to educate them on that. They want to know, they want answers. If I get it, what happens? Do I die? Is this now the end? Now is this what is coming to finish me off? You know? And this is somebody who had been so faithful to their medication, and now they got Corona. I know a couple of people who got Corona and they were so scared. They were like, I am going to die. Doreen, now imagine I've lived with HIV all those years and now I'm coming to die with a new disease. And you're like, no, relax, you're not going to die, you know? And it's people keep telling you, no, talk about cancer. You know, the thing is, even cancer is affecting people living with HIV. Diabetes is affecting people living with HIV. So it doesn't mean that because you get HIV, then it stops there. The other diseases look at you and say, this one has HIV, we will jump them. No. The people are actually living with both. You find somebody with high blood pressure and they have HIV. So they have to take medication for both. And these are people who are actually worried because they don't know which among these two diseases is going to take them out. So I feel like the government is not fully committed to fighting HIV, because we see countries like South Africa which are now funding themselves without hoping for donor funding. And most of the donors are actually leaving South Africa. But now in Kenya, we still have, 36 years later, the government has never bought a single ARV for people living with HIV. Now, when PEPFAR said we cannot continue giving you people free medication, you have to step in a little bit. And they said we are going to let you people buy Septrin, we buy ARVs. The Septrin disappeared. Till this moment, there is no Septrin medication, because that is the government committed to buy it, and all they keep giving are promises. So the gap is the government's commitment. It is the commitment that is lacking. So every time, even if they stand and say, we want to end mother-to-child transmissions, 6 months down the line, they have not paid nurses. There are strikes. Mothers are there, they want to deliver. This is a mother living with HIV. They are left to deliver on their own. In fact, there was a time Kenya had like 5% cases of EMTCT, like elimination of mother-to-child transmission. And we were doing very well. And then the government did not pay the nurses. The nurses striked. Women who gave birth from 2018 till 2020, it rose again to 12%. So you see, we are failing the children of this country. In 2021, no child is supposed to be born with HIV. None at all. Because now we have medication, we have prevention medication, but then these women, they are advised, give birth to children. We will give you prophylaxis for your children. 3 months down the line, they go to hospital, they're told, you know there is no prophylaxis, just go and come back next week. And the sad part is you cannot even buy that prophylaxis in the chemist. It's not there. So it has to be given from the hospital. So the government it's the commitment from the government, by the way, that is lacking. And once the government commits fully to fighting HIV, trust me, we will reach a point where we will have 0 new HIV infections. So for anybody who will want to follow me on social media, my social media names on Facebook, it's Doreen Moraa Moracha. On YouTube, it's Doreen Moraa Moracha. Not YouTube. On Instagram, it's Doreen Moraa Moracha. On Twitter, it's D_Moraa. On TikTok, it's DEE Moraa 01. Though there I don't really do much of HIV content, but for some reason HIV content follows me there. And on YouTube now, that is full HIV content. It's I Am a Beautiful Story. I do videos every week on Fridays, and they're basically different topics. Some of them come from the people who watch the videos. Some of them are just see new information that has come out and I give it out. Like right now, there is a new HIV injection, ARV injection that has come out. So those are the kind of things that I'm going to feature from time to time.